I never thought a Tuesday dinner would be the night everything collapsed. But there I was, watching mashed potatoes slide down the wall I'd repainted just 3 weeks ago. Bailey was 14. But in that moment, she might as well have been 4. Screaming, face red, her entire body shaking with the kind of rage that comes from never hearing the word no. The green beans followed the potatoes, leaving streaks across the cream paint. "You will never be part of this family," she screamed, her voice cracking. "Never!" I'd heard variations before. Muttered insults when her mother stepped away. Eye rolls when I offered to help with algebra. Doors slammed when I asked simple questions like, "How was school?" But this was different. This was public, deliberate, and somehow final. I turned to my wife, waiting. We'd talked about Bailey's behavior dozens of times behind closed doors. She always promised to handle it. She never did. "Bailey," I said quietly, setting my fork down. "That's enough. Apologize and clean this up." The look Bailey gave me could have frozen water. Then she turned to her mother with that wounded expression she'd perfected years ago, the one that always worked. My wife's face hardened, but not at Bailey, at me. "She's my child, not yours," she said, her voice cold and sharp. "Don't correct her." The words landed like a slap, clean, final, irreversible. I didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't even look hurt. I just smiled, stood up and cleared my plate, scraped the food into the trash, rinsed the dish, loaded it into the dishwasher with the same calm precision I did every single night. Bailey was still crying, but the tears looked confused now, like she didn't understand why I wasn't reacting. My wife just stared. "Thanks for dinner," I said, walking toward the bedroom. I closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed. The house was quiet, except for muffled voices downstairs. My wife trying to calm Bailey, Bailey milking every second of attention. 3 years. 3 years I'd been in this house, paying the mortgage, covering utilities, funding Bailey's private school tuition at $18,000 a year. 3 years of trying to be a decent influence on a kid who made it crystal clear I was nothing but a wallet with a pulse. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First, the school billing office, then the credit card company, then the insurance provider. Each conversation was brief and professional. Yes, I'm sure. Yes, effective immediately. No, no explanation necessary. By the time my wife came upstairs an hour later, I was already in bed reading like nothing had happened. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Are you going to talk about this?" I glanced up from the page. "About what?" "About dinner, about Bailey." "What's there to talk about? You made it clear where I stand." She sighed that exhausted sigh she always made when she thought I was being difficult. "She's a teenager. They say things they don't mean." "Maybe. But you meant what you said." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she didn't have a response ready. "Good night," I said, returning to my book. She stood there another minute before finally leaving. I heard her go into Bailey's room, heard the low murmur of conversation, heard Bailey's voice rise in indignation. I kept reading, finished the chapter, turned off the light. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. When I woke Wednesday morning, my wife had already left for work. Bailey was still asleep. I made coffee, scrambled eggs, ate breakfast in peaceful silence. My phone buzzed. Confirmation. Private school account closed. Balance settled. Enrollment terminated. Another buzz. Credit card, ending in 4782, deactivated per account holder request. Another. Insurance policy canceled, refund processed. I finished my coffee and headed to work. Just another Wednesday. Except everything had changed, and only I knew it yet. The call came at 10:47 a.m. "What did you do?" My wife's voice was ice and fire at the same time. "Good morning to you, too. The school just called me. They said Bailey's tuition account is closed. They're saying she can't attend tomorrow." "That's correct." Silence, then. "What?" "I closed the account this morning. She'll need to enroll in the public school district." "You can't just..." "I can, and I did. I'm not paying $18,000 a year for someone who throws food at walls and tells me I'm not family. She's a child. She's 14, old enough to understand consequences." More silence. I could hear her breathing, trying to control her temper in whatever office she'd stepped into for privacy. "What else did you do?" "Canceled her credit card, canceled her car insurance." "That's her car." "No, that's my car that I let her borrow. Correction, used to let her borrow. She can't drive it anymore." "You're punishing a child because your feelings got hurt." I leaned back in my chair. "I'm setting boundaries, something you should have done years ago. We need to talk about this when I get home." "Sure, I'll be here." She hung up without saying goodbye. I went back to work, responded to emails, attended a meeting about quarterly projections. Normal day, productive day. At 3:15 p.m., Bailey called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 3:22. Another voicemail. Then a text. "WTF did you do?" I didn't respond. My wife came home early, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the windows. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner like always. "We need to talk, now." I kept chopping vegetables. "I'm listening." "You can't just cancel everything without discussing it with me first." "I can when it's my money paying for it. That's not how marriage works." I set down the knife and turned to face her. "You're absolutely right. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership. Mutual respect, shared decisions. But you made it very clear last night that when it comes to Bailey, I have no say. So I'm respecting your boundary. You handle Bailey your way. I'll handle my money my way." Her face went through several expressions: anger, confusion, frustration, before settling on something close to panic. "You're being ridiculous." "Am I? Tell me, when was the last time you asked my opinion before making a decision about Bailey? When was the last time you backed me up when she disrespected me? When was the last time you treated me like I actually matter in this house?" She didn't answer. "That's what I thought," I said, turning back to the vegetables. "So what? You're just going to let a teenager suffer because she hurt your ego?" "No. I'm going to let a teenager learn that actions have consequences. Something you've been too afraid to teach her." Bailey appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, face blotchy from crying. "Mom, tell him to fix this. Everyone at school is going to know I got kicked out." My wife looked between us, clearly torn. I kept cooking. "Bailey, go to your room. Your stepfather and I need to talk privately." "He's not my stepfather. He's just some guy." I didn't react, didn't even glance her way. My wife snapped, "Bailey, room, now!" The teenager stomped away, and I heard her door slam hard enough to shake the ceiling. "Happy?" my wife asked. "Not particularly, but at least I'm not pretending anymore." "Pretending what?" "That this is a family. That I'm anything more than a paycheck to both of you." She stared at me, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw something that might have been guilt. That's not fair. Isn't it? Name one time in the last year when either of you treated me like I belonged here. She couldn't. We both knew she couldn't. I plated the food, set the table for 3 out of habit, then removed one setting. I'm eating in my office tonight. You two enjoy dinner. I took my plate and left her standing in the kitchen, finally speechless. Thursday morning started earlier than usual. Bailey's alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., just like every school day for the past 3 years. Except this time, there was no private school to go to. I was already up, drinking coffee at the kitchen counter when she came downstairs in her uniform, the expensive one with the school crest embroidered on the blazer. $2,000 worth of required clothing that was now completely useless. She stopped when she saw me, her hand frozen on the banister. "The district office opens at 8, I said without looking up from my phone. "You'll need proof of residence and your transcripts. Your mother has the paperwork." Bailey's face went pale. "You're serious? You're actually making me go to public school?" "I'm not making you do anything. Your mother can pay the tuition if she wants to keep you at Whitmore Academy." We both knew that wasn't happening. My wife made decent money as a medical records administrator, but not $18,000 a year tuition money. Not even close. Bailey stood there for another moment, then turned and ran back upstairs. I heard her door slam. Then I heard crying. Then I heard my wife's voice, muffled but sharp, trying to comfort her daughter while probably cursing me silently. I refilled my coffee and checked my emails. At 7:45, my wife came downstairs. She'd clearly been crying too, her makeup smudged under her eyes. She didn't say good morning, just poured herself coffee and stood on the opposite side of the kitchen island like we were negotiating a hostage situation. "The credit card," she said finally. "Bailey needs that for emergencies." "She has a phone. She can call 911 in an emergency." "You know what I mean. For gas, food, things she needs." "She doesn't have a car anymore, so gas isn't relevant. As for food, she lives here. There's plenty in the refrigerator." My wife's jaw tightened. "You're being petty." "I'm being clear. I don't fund disrespect anymore." "She's a teenager. They're all difficult." I set down my phone and looked at her directly. When was the last time she thanked me for anything? When was the last time she acknowledged that I pay for her phone, her clothes, her activities? When was the last time you corrected her when she treated me like garbage in front of your family? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. Bailey came back downstairs in jeans and a hoodie, her face puffy and red. She wouldn't look at me, just grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. "Bailey, wait," my wife called. "I'll drive you to the district office." "I thought you had that meeting at 9. "I'll reschedule." They left together, and the house fell silent. I finished my coffee, grabbed my keys, and headed to work. Traffic was light. The morning was clear. Everything felt surprisingly normal for a day when I'd just blown up my marriage. My phone started buzzing around at 10 a.m. My wife's sister, ignored. Her mother, ignored. Her brother, ignored. Then my wife called. I answered on the third ring. "You need to call the insurance company and reinstate Bailey's policy." "No." "She needs to be able to drive." "Then you can add her to your policy." Silence. We both knew her insurance would skyrocket with a teenage driver added, especially one with Bailey's attitude behind the wheel. "This is insane. You're punishing her for being a kid." "I'm teaching her something you never bothered to. Actions have consequences." "I've tried. You don't see what I deal with when you're not home." Then maybe you should have dealt with it when I was home. Maybe you should have backed me up instead of undermining me every single time. More silence, then quieter. What do you want? An apology? No, I want respect. And since that's apparently too much to ask, I want to stop paying for the privilege of being treated like an intruder in my own house. So that's it. You're just going to cut her off completely. I'm setting boundaries. She wants to tell me I'm not family? Fine, I'm not. And family is what pays for private schools and credit cards and car insurance. My wife's voice cracked. She didn't mean it. Yes, she did. And you know what? That's okay. She's entitled to her feelings. But I'm entitled to mine too. And I'm done pretending this arrangement works for anyone except you two. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've spent 3 years trying to be part of something that was never meant to include me. You needed financial stability after your divorce. I looked like a safe bet. But you never actually wanted a partner. You wanted a provider. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you asked my opinion about anything important? When was the last time you introduced me as your husband instead of Bailey's stepfather? When was the last time you chose me over her when we disagreed? She couldn't answer. I need to get back to work, I said. Enjoy your day. I hung up before she could respond. Lunch came and went. I ate at my desk, reviewed contracts, approved purchase orders. Normal Thursday things. At 2:30, another call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, listened to it 5 minutes later. It was Whitmore Academy's guidance counselor, very apologetically informing me that Bailey had shown up at school despite her account being closed. They'd had to call my wife to come pick her up. Very embarrassing for everyone involved. They hoped we could resolve the situation soon. I deleted the message. At 4:15, my phone buzzed with a text from my wife. We need to talk when you get home. Seriously, I'll be there at 6. The rest of the afternoon passed slowly. I caught myself checking the clock more than usual. Not because I was nervous, I wasn't. I was just curious how she'd try to spin this. I got home at 6:03. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. My wife was sitting at the table, Bailey's chair empty beside her. Where's Bailey? I asked, setting down my briefcase. Upstairs, crying again. I nodded and moved to start dinner preparations. Can you stop for 5 minutes and talk to me? I turned around and leaned against the counter. I'm listening. This has to stop. You're destroying her. I canceled some luxury services. That's hardly destruction. She showed up at school today. Do you know how humiliating that was for her? The office staff had to tell her she couldn't stay in front of her friends. Then maybe she'll remember that next time she decides to scream that I'm not family. My wife stood up, her chair scraping hard against the floor. She's a child. Children say horrible things. You're supposed to be the adult here. I am being an adult. Adults don't subsidize their own abuse. Abuse? Are you serious right now? I crossed my arms. What would you call it? 3 years of constant disrespect. 3 years of being told I don't matter. 3 years of you taking her side every single time, no matter how wrong she was. What would you call that? She stared at me, her face flushed. I call it blended family challenges. It's normal. No. Normal is working together to build something. This is me funding a life I'm not actually part of while being expected to smile and take it. So what do you want? You want her to bow down and worship you? I want basic human decency. I want acknowledgement that I'm a person with feelings. I want her to understand that respect isn't optional. She's 14, old enough to know better, and definitely old enough to learn. My wife sat back down, her hands covering her face. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. The genuine kind, not the manipulative kind. What if I can't afford to put her back in private school? Then she goes to public school. Thousands of kids do just fine there. Her friends will still be her friends if they're worth having. She shook her head slowly. You've changed. You're not the man I married. You're right. The man you married would have kept taking it, would have kept paying for the privilege of being disrespected, would have kept pretending everything was fine. That man's gone. So what now? I pushed off the counter and headed toward the stairs. Now I'm going to change and go for a run. You can make dinner tonight, or order something. I don't really care which. Wait. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked back. Can we just try to fix this together? I studied her face. She looked tired, stressed, scared even. But not regretful, not apologetic, just worried about losing the arrangement. Fix what exactly? Your daughter's behavior, or the fact that you've spent 3 years treating me like a walking wallet? She flinched. I'll make you a deal, I said. You start treating me like a husband instead of a checkbook, and I'll consider being more flexible. But that means backing me up when Bailey gets out of line. That means consulting me on decisions. That means acting like we're actually partners. She nodded quickly. Okay, yes, I can do that. We'll see. I went upstairs, changed into running gear, and left through the garage. The evening air was cool and clear. My feet hit the pavement in a steady rhythm. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3. By the time I got back, the house was dark again. Both of them had retreated to their rooms. I showered, made myself a sandwich, and ate it while watching highlights from last night's game. Tomorrow would be day 3, and I had a feeling it was going to be even more interesting than the first 2. Friday started with Bailey getting ready for her first day at Jefferson High, the public school 3 miles from our house, the one she'd spent years making fun of with her private school friends. I was in the kitchen when she came down, dressed in regular clothes that suddenly looked too expensive for where she was going. Designer jeans, name-brand sneakers, a jacket that cost more than some people's monthly grocery budget. She grabbed a granola bar from the pantry without saying a word to me. Wouldn't even make eye contact. My wife appeared a minute later, car keys already in hand. Come on, sweetie, I'll drop you off before work. Can I just stay home today? Start Monday instead? No, you've already missed 2 days this week. Bailey's shoulders slumped. She looked younger suddenly, vulnerable. For half a second, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered Tuesday night, the mashed potatoes on the wall, the screaming, my wife telling me I had no right to correct her child. The feeling passed. They left without saying goodbye to me. I finished my coffee, grabbed my laptop bag, and headed to the office. Work was busy. Back-to-back meetings. A presentation to the executive team. 3 conference calls with the West Coast office. I didn't check my phone until almost 1 p.m. 7 missed calls from my wife. 3 from numbers I didn't recognize. 5 text messages, all from my wife. Bailey's having a terrible day. She's in the counselor's office crying. This is your fault. Call me. Call me now. I didn't call. I went back to work. At 3:45, my phone rang again. This time, I answered. What? My wife's voice was strained. Can you please just talk to me like a human being? Sure, what do you need? Bailey's first day was horrible. The kids were mean. The teachers don't care. She sat alone at lunch. She came home crying. I waited. There had to be more. Don't you have anything to say? What do you want me to say? That I'll fix it? I can't. That I feel bad? I don't. She's learning what the actual world is like when you're not insulated by $18,000 a year. You're unbelievable. I'm consistent. There's a difference. She made a frustrated sound. Fine. What about the car? Can we at least discuss the car situation? What about it? She needs transportation. I can't keep driving her everywhere. I have a job too. Bus system runs right past our street. Route 47 picks up at 7:15 a.m. Silence. Then, you want her to take the bus? Why not? Millions of kids do it every day. She's never taken a bus in her life. Then it'll be educational. My wife's voice dropped to something dangerous. You're enjoying this. I'm not. But I'm also not going to pretend that removing unearned privileges is somehow abusive. It is when you do it to hurt a child. I did it to establish boundaries. The hurt is just her recognizing that actions have consequences, something you've been too scared to teach her. Don't you dare tell me how to parent my daughter. I wouldn't dream of it. You made it very clear that's not my place. I'm just managing my finances accordingly. She hung up. I went back to my spreadsheet. That evening, I got home around 6. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My wife's car was in the driveway, but I didn't hear the usual sounds. No TV, no music from Bailey's room, no cooking in the kitchen. I found them both in the living room. Bailey on the couch, eyes red and swollen. My wife in the armchair, staring at nothing. Evening, I said, heading toward the kitchen. We need to talk. My wife's voice was flat. About all of this. About where we go from here. I leaned against the doorframe. Okay, talk. Bailey glanced at me, then quickly looked away. She pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. My wife took a breath. Bailey has something she wants to say. The teenager's face went red. Mom. Bailey, we talked about this. Several seconds passed, then barely audible. I'm sorry. I waited. I'm sorry for what I said, and for throwing food, and for being disrespectful. The words were correct. The tone was mechanical. This wasn't genuine remorse. This was a transaction, an attempt to restore the status quo. Thank you for apologizing, I said evenly. Bailey looked at her mother, confused. My wife looked equally thrown. That's it? My wife asked. What else would there be? Are you going to, I don't know, accept her apology? Tell her you forgive her? I accept that she said the words. Forgiveness is a process, not a light switch. My wife's face hardened. She apologized. You got what you wanted. No, I got words. What I want is behavioral change, and that takes time to prove. So what? Nothing changes? You're still going to keep everything canceled? For now, yes. Bailey's face crumpled. But I said I was sorry. And I appreciate that. But sorry doesn't erase 3 years of treating me like I don't exist. Sorry doesn't undo Tuesday night. Sorry is just a starting point. That's not fair. Bailey's voice rose. You're supposed to forgive people when they apologize. I am forgiving you. I'm not angry. I'm not yelling. I'm not trying to hurt you. But I'm also not going to pretend that an apology fixes everything. You want your privileges back? Earn them. How am I supposed to do that? I shrugged. Start by treating me like a person. Acknowledge when I do things for you. Say thank you once in a while. Stop acting like I'm invisible unless you need something. I do say thank you. When was the last time? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her mother for help. My wife jumped in. This is ridiculous. You're holding a grudge against a teenager. I'm establishing standards. There's a difference. You're being vindictive. I'm being clear about what I will and won't accept. If that makes me vindictive in your eyes, so be it. My wife stood up, her hands clenched into fists. You know what? Fine. Keep the car canceled. Keep the credit card canceled. Keep the school tuition canceled. But don't expect me to just sit here and watch you punish my daughter. I don't expect anything from you except what you've always given me. Nothing. Her face went pale. What's that supposed to mean? It means you made your choice a long time ago. Your daughter comes first, always, no matter what. Even when she's wrong, even when she's cruel, even when she's destroying our marriage. You chose her over me before we even said our vows. She's my child, and I'm your husband. Or at least I'm supposed to be. But I've never felt like it. Not once in 3 years. Bailey was crying again, but quietly this time. My wife looked torn between comforting her and continuing the argument. I pushed off the door frame. I'm going to order some dinner. Do you want anything? The question hung there, absurd in its normalcy after everything that had just been said. No, my wife said coldly. Suit yourself. I ordered Chinese food for one, ate it at the kitchen counter while scrolling through my phone, and went to bed early. Saturday morning, I woke up to find my wife already awake, sitting on her side of the bed with her back to me. I talked to a lawyer yesterday, she said without turning around. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice neutral. About what? About my options if we separate. And what did they say? That I'd probably be fine. Child support from Bailey's father. Alimony from you for a few years. I'd have to downsize, but I'd manage. I sat up slowly. Is that what you want? Separation? She finally turned to look at me. Her eyes were exhausted. I don't know what I want. I thought I knew when I married you. Security, stability. Someone who'd be good to Bailey. But this, she gestured vaguely. This isn't what I signed up for. Neither did I. We stared at each other across the rumpled sheets. So what now? She asked. That's up to you. But I'm not going back to how things were. I can't. I won't. Even if it means losing us? You keep saying us like I was ever part of that equation. But I wasn't. It was always you and Bailey, and I was just the guy who paid for everything. She flinched. That's not true. Then prove it. Show me one time, just one, where you chose me over her when it mattered. She couldn't. We both sat there in silence, the truth settling between us like dust. Finally, she stood up. I need to think. Take your time. She left the room. I heard her go downstairs. Heard the coffee maker start. Heard her on the phone with someone. Probably her sister. I got dressed and went for a long drive. Didn't have a destination. Just needed to clear my head. When I got back 3 hours later, my wife's car was gone. So was Bailey. A note on the counter said they'd gone to her mother's for the weekend. I spent Saturday afternoon cleaning the house. Vacuumed, did laundry, organized the garage. All the things I normally did while they were out shopping or at Bailey's activities. The house felt different without them. Calmer, quieter, emptier. I ordered pizza for dinner, watched a game, and fell asleep on the couch. Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from my wife. "We need to talk tomorrow night. Please be home by 6. I responded, "I'll be there." No other messages came, no calls, no updates. I spent Sunday catching up on work emails, paying bills, reorganizing my finances. The numbers told an interesting story. Without Bailey's school, credit card bills, and car insurance, I was suddenly saving nearly $3,000 a month. $3,000 I'd been spending without really thinking about it. Money that disappeared into a void of private school tuition, shopping sprees, and premium gas for a car she barely appreciated. I made a spreadsheet, tracked every expense over the past year related to Bailey. The total made me sit back in my chair. Over $40,000 on someone else's child. Someone who'd never once thanked me sincerely. Someone who'd screamed that I'd never be family. I closed the laptop and stared out the window. Tomorrow night's conversation was going to be interesting, because I had a feeling my wife was going to try one more time to restore things to how they were. And I was going to make it clear that door was permanently closed. Monday dragged on forever. Every hour felt like 3. I kept checking my watch, not out of nervousness, but curiosity. What angle would she try this time? I got home at 5:55. My wife's car was already there. So was Bailey's bike, the one gathering dust in the garage that she'd suddenly rediscovered now that the car was gone. They were both in the living room when I walked in. My wife looked composed, professional even, like she'd rehearsed this. "Thanks for coming home on time," she said. I set down my briefcase. "You asked me to. Can we sit?" I took the armchair. She sat on the couch next to Bailey, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. My wife folded her hands. "I've been thinking a lot this weekend. About us. About what you said." I waited. "You're right. I haven't been fair to you. I've put Bailey first without considering how that made you feel. And that needs to change." Bailey shifted uncomfortably. "So here's what I'm proposing," my wife continued. "We start fresh. Family counseling, all 3 of us. Bailey will work on being more respectful. I'll work on including you more in decisions. And you consider restoring some of the things you canceled." "No." Her carefully maintained expression cracked. "What?" "No counseling, no negotiations, no restoring anything." "But I just said I'd work on." "You'd work on what you should have been doing all along. That's not progress. That's the bare minimum." My wife's voice rose. "Then what do you want?" "Honestly, I'm not sure anymore. But I know it's not this." I gestured around the room. "This performance. This attempt to manipulate me back into the old arrangement with prettier words." Bailey spoke up suddenly. "I've been trying. I said good morning to you yesterday." I looked at her. "You said it from the other room without looking at me. That's not trying. That's checking a box." "What do you want from me?" Her voice cracked. "Genuine change. Not because you want your privileges back, but because you actually understand what you did wrong." My wife stood up. "This is impossible. You're asking for perfection. I'm asking for basic decency. If that seems impossible to you, that tells me everything I need to know. So that's it. You're just done. After 3 years." I stood too. "I've been done since Tuesday. I'm just being honest about it now." The room went silent. Bailey stared at the floor. My wife's hands trembled slightly. "I consulted with a lawyer too," I said quietly. "This morning, about protecting my assets if things go south." My wife's face went white. You're serious? Completely. You wanted to talk about options. Here they are. Either this marriage becomes an actual partnership, or it ends. But I'm done being an ATM with feelings you ignore. That's not fair. Life rarely is. You taught Bailey that lesson. Now you're learning it too. I grabbed my keys. I'm going out. When I get back, I want this house to myself tonight. Go to your mother's again, both of you. Give me space to think. You can't just kick us out. I'm not kicking you out. I'm asking for one night alone in my own house, unless that's too much to ask. She grabbed her purse without another word. Bailey followed, eyes wide and scared. I waited until their car pulled out before I finally exhaled. The house settled into silence. I ordered takeout, ate it slowly, and realized something. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being invisible. Tired of funding a life I was never meant to be part of. Tomorrow I'd make some calls, real ones, because whatever happened next, it wasn't going to look like the past 3 years. Tuesday evening, my wife came back alone. Bailey was staying with her grandmother until things calmed down. She found me in the kitchen, making dinner for one. We need to talk, for real this time. I turned off the stove. All right. She sat at the table, her shoulders slumped into feet. I spoke with my lawyer again today. She said if we divorce, I'd get some alimony, maybe 2 years' worth. Bailey's father already pays child support, so that wouldn't change. Okay. Is that all you have to say? I leaned against the counter. What do you want me to say? That I'll fight it. I won't. You want out? I'm not stopping you. Her eyes filled with tears. Don't you even care? About what? Losing something I never really had? That's not fair. Then tell me the truth. Did you ever love me, or was I just convenient? The silence stretched between us. Finally, she looked down at her hands. I needed stability. After the divorce, everything was chaos. Bailey was struggling. Money was tight. Then you showed up. Stable job, nice guy, good with kids. Or so I thought. You seemed safe. Safe, not loved. I thought love would come later. I thought we'd grow into it. But we didn't. No. Her voice was barely a whisper. We didn't. I nodded slowly. At least you're honest now. I tried to make it work. I really did. You tried to make me fit into a space that was never meant for me. There's a difference. She wiped her eyes. So what now? Now we stop pretending. You file the papers. We divide things cleanly. You and Bailey move on with your lives. I move on with mine. Just like that? Just like that? She stood up, her chair scraping the floor. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I believe you, but sorry doesn't change anything. She walked to the door, then paused. Bailey asked me to tell you something. What? She said she's sorry too. That she understands now why you did what you did. That she took you for granted. Tell her I appreciate that. And I hope she learned something from all this. My wife nodded and left. I finished making dinner, ate in silence, and cleaned up. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to my lawyer. Let's move forward with the paperwork. The response came 30 seconds later. I'll have everything ready by Thursday. I set the phone down and looked around the kitchen. My kitchen, my house, my life. For the first time in 3 years, it actually felt like mine. Tomorrow would bring paperwork and logistics. But tonight, I could finally breathe. 3 months later, everything was finalized. The divorce was clean. She kept what she brought into the marriage. I kept what was mine. No drama, no courtroom battles. Just signatures and a handshake from lawyers. My wife moved into a smaller place across town. Bailey switched schools again, this time to one closer to her grandmother's house. I heard through mutual friends that she was doing better, more grounded, less entitled. I stayed in the house, repainted the dining room, got rid of the furniture that carried too many bad memories, started having friends over again. Something I'd stopped doing years ago because Bailey always made it uncomfortable. Work picked up. I took on a project I'd been avoiding, traveled for a conference, reconnected with colleagues I'd lost touch with. One Saturday morning, I ran into my ex-wife at the hardware store. She looked tired, but composed. We exchanged awkward hellos. "How's Bailey?" I asked, because it seemed like the right thing to say. "She's okay, adjusting. She asks about you sometimes. Tell her I hope she's doing well." My ex-wife hesitated. For what it's worth, she learned a lot from all this. About consequences, about respect. Things I should have taught her years ago. Better late than never? She nodded and walked away. I finished shopping, loaded my car, and drove home. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer, watching the sunset. The house was quiet, peaceful, mine. No tension, no walking carefully around someone else's feelings, no funding a life I wasn't part of. My phone buzzed. A text from an old friend inviting me to a barbecue next weekend. I responded yes immediately. Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't pretending to be okay with things that made me miserable. I'd spent too long being invisible in my own home. Too long accepting disrespect because it was easier than confronting it. But that version of me was gone. And I didn't miss him at all. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky orange and red. I finished my beer, went inside, and started planning the week ahead. No regrets, no looking back, just forward. And that was enough. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.